Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel Held Dominance. Anthony here. Please remember to like and subscribe, and also click that notification bell if you're enjoying what you're seeing and if you want to see more. Coming up in this episode, before the Super League playoffs begin, I give my review of the regular season in 2022 for the bottom 6 teams in this part 1 review episode. So, all eyes are on Old Trafford for 2022's playoffs, but we mustn't forget what happened in the 2022 regular season for Super League. So, what I'm going to do in this episode is review the bottom 6 clubs and how they went on. What I do normally is a scoring system like you would in exams. A plus grade all the way down to F. A plus being winning the league title unbeaten, 1,000 points. An F is 0 points on the board, finishing bottom and conceding over 1,000 points. Just to give you a scale. So, where do we begin? Let's start in the Pink City as Toulouse Olympic made their debut bow in Super League, but unfortunately ended the season in bottom position. Toulouse, finishing 12th with 5 wins all season, sees them return to the championship at the first time of asking, but there have been some green shoots for the club if they could put some results on the board. With the first win of the season for Toulouse coming at home against St Helens, 22 points to 20. Wins against Wakefield twice, once at Magic Weekend, a comeback victory at Magic Weekend, which was fantastic. Hull KR and Leeds Rhinos saw the Toulouse team slip out of the division, despite some very good results at home against Wigan before their first win of the season, losing by a point, and losing by a point against Huddersfield in the midway stage of the season. Also, as late as round 20, we saw Toulouse battling out with Wakefield and staying on a better points difference above the West Yorkshire side in their quest for survival. But the men from the Pink City were always in for a tough end of season, as after their win against Leeds on the 16th of July, and coupled with their last 6 games with only 1 home game during that period against playoff hopefuls Catalans Dragons, Sylvain Houlier's men did not win a game again. It was unfortunate, as they had played some good rugby league at times, but a bit more pragmatism could have been needed to keep the fledgling French franchise in Super League for another season. They have one of their young stars staying in Super League though, with Justin Sangare joining Leeds for 2023 on a 2-year deal. So there is quality in that team. The club's still determined to get back into Super League for 2024, as they are planning to keep their professional status to help them with the travel expenses that they must pay out to the visiting clubs to travel, as well as the officials as well. Toulouse must look back 12 months now to the form and the team quality that was employed to get them into Super League. But will their stars like Corey Norman and Daniel Alvaro stay for 2023 in the second tier of English Rugby League? We'll have to see. Whatever happens, Sylvain Houlier's does have to make a few improvements to the squad, so hopefully plan for that assault on Super League in 2024, should they get there. Up next is the Warrington Wolves, and a club with such lofty expectations and reported huge operational budget to finish where they did is something of a travesty. A club with a new coach and with lofty aspirations did not expect to find themselves in 11th place, having only won 9 games all season, losing 18 of the regular season games. Daryl Powell was brought in to start the process of being a consistent top team, winning Super Leagues, winning Grand Finals, and had high lofty aspirations, albeit with a settler season in between. And they started off so well by winning their first 3 games in February, beating Leeds, Castleford, and Toulouse along the way. But from February on to the end of June, Warrington had only won 2 games during that period. 32-18 victory against Salford Red Devils at home, and an absolute turgid affair that ended up 4-0 in the favour of Warrington against Hull FC. But an end-of-season run of 4 wins from 11 games was just enough to see them, well, be safe by 8 points. But things could have went a different way if Toulouse had a better end of the season. Warrington could have severely been staring down the barrel of a relegation fight. That run came on the back of the signing of Australian fullback Matt Duffy, who added fresh impetus at fullback for the club. But it wasn't the most spectacular of years for Warrington. And with more expensive Aussie recruits on the way, like former Australia international Paul Vaughan coming to the club cannot have another season like they've just had. Wakefield Trinity. Well, what can we say about them? Many pundits have set them for the bottom place, but for them to finish 10th with 10 wins from their Super League season is above the expectations of even the most ardent of Wakefield Trinity fans. As we saw from the Toulouse clip, they were in bottom position with 7 games left to go, and to go on the run that they did with 5 wins from their 7 games was absolutely fantastic for Wakefield. Willie Potching did a fantastic job getting these young players firing and also rekindling the fighting spirit that his senior players had been lacking earlier in the season. And it could have ended a whole lot better as well, as they faced Huddersfield Giants and took them all the way to Golden Point. And they could have finished above Hull FC with all said and done in 9th place, but it wasn't to be. After winning 1 of their opening 5 games and also taking a couple of rattlings, 74 points to 10 against Salford and 54 points to 10 against Wigan, they stood up and fought their way up the league, to be fair, after what had been a wretched start to the season. This is also without star turn Tom Johnson on the wing, who now also moves on for pastures new as he heads to Catalans for next season. Fortunately for Wakefield, there is a new kid on the block, as Lewis Murphy is looking set to take over that mantle for the Trinity. Despite Wakefield wanting to build again for 2023, the building job will get a lot deeper, as there is 6 players minimum out the door at the end of the year, with Bill Tupou retiring, David Fafita, Jacob Miller, Joe Batchelor, Tini Arona, and also Yusuf Aldin, all looking at pastures new. Hull FC, the Black and Whites, the Nearly Rans, whatever you want to call them, have had a terrible season. With huge expectations and a huge fan base following them, Hull FC were expected to be in the playoffs, building off last year's almost season, which they were outshone by Hull KR. But this season, as we saw in the Wakefield piece that I've just done, has been terrible by their high standards. A 9th place finish, winning only 11 games from their 27, sees them finishing 9th place, and it could have been a lot worse if Wakefield had got the result against Huddersfield. As we shown in a couple of days ago episode, Brett Hodgson has faced the music with this entire season and was, I'd say, mutually released from his Hull FC contract to find employment elsewhere. Now Hull FC need to find a new coach. Plus, losing 2-1 in this year's fixtures against Hull KR, with only win coming at Magic Weekend, it couldn't have helped Hull get their coach another year in the job. Hull FC Supremo Adam Pearson will be looking at ways to get the team better, and with new signing Tex Hoy coming into the club with Brett Hodgson as their coach, he will need some appeasing to why he should have the contract with the Black and Whites, the Early Birds, for 2023. There have been some big score losses for Hull FC along the way. Castleford against their former coach, they lost 46 points to 18. A week after getting brutalised 60 points to 0 at Wigan Warriors. Worse was still to come as they lost later on in the season at home 60 points to 6 to St Helens. Starters like Jake Connor, who have been in and out of the side all season due to injuries or suspensions, but Hull FC have relied on young loanees to fill the gap. Young England Knights players Ellis Longstaff, Jack Walker and Josh Sim all came in and caused immediate havoc and upturned the Hull FC form briefly, but it wasn't enough for them to do much better than the 9th place finish that they ended up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching so far, but now here comes the epic that is Hull KR's season. You may want to grab a brew. Press pause, grab a brew, and then come back to listen to this one. There's a lot to go through, and we've got 3.5 minutes to do it. Now, the club started off reasonably poorly, as 2 wins in February and March in total seen the club not have their best starts, and head coach Tony Smith was starting to feel the pressure. But with only 1 defeat throughout the entire of April, plus a Challenge Cup win at the end of March, saw them rocket up the league, and an improving Leeds Rhinos side were the only one that took the spoils from them in the game that they lost some of their star players before their Challenge Cup semi-final against Huddersfield Giants. But at the same time as Tony Smith was losing players, he had decided that at the end of the season he was stepping away from the club. The club did indeed move fast after Tony Smith's announcement, and they had appointed Willie Peters for the 2023 season after his period with Newcastle Knights had ended. But from grand final semi-finalists, playoff semi-finalists in 2021, Hull KR started to have some indifferent results, and 2 wins between that semi-final at the beginning of June up until the 4th of July, Hull KR pulled the trigger and relieved Tony Smith of his duties, employing his assistant Danny Maguire as interim head coach for the rest of 2022. Maguire was trying to get off to a good start, but it wasn't that much of an easy game for his first game of the season as head coach, as it was at Magic Weekend against local rivals Hull FC, which unfortunately they lost the game. Maguire ended the season with 4 wins from his 9 games, in which he oversaw a absolute travesty of a season when it comes to players' injuries, as he lost the likes of Lachlan Coote, Jez Litton to ban, Sean Kenny Dowell, who ended up in the Super League Dream Team, to season-ending injuries. Players like Mikey Lewis were in and out of the side, star turns. But he did, with 16 players, many of whom were youngsters, beat their local rivals 36 points to 4 on the last game of the season. Maguire will now step back into the assistant role, as he will take on the workload that Willie Peters will ask for him, as the Peters tenure comes to the fore at the beginning of 2023. Despite a raft of players leaving or retiring the club at the end of the year, Willie Peters has started setting up his own squad for 2023, with the signings of the likes of Jesse Sewer, Reece Kennedy and Tom Opachich coming into the club following him from Australia, as well as bringing in Joe Batchelor and Yusuf Aldin from Wakefield in the process, as they are 2 form forwards. So the final review goes to Castleford Tigers, as the Tigers were the nearly men of 2022, as they finished 7th in this year's Super League table. A 7th place finish is respectable for the Tigers, looking at the injuries that they had to key playmakers, and for a place to start from to help head coach Lee Radford grow a squad in his image. Some might say this season is where Castleford was destined to end up, with 544 points scored, which is about 6th or 7th in the table for points scored, and 620 points conceded, which again is about 6th or 7th with how the team stood up in the 2022 season. Don't get me wrong, Castleford were in it until the last game of the season with their hopes of getting to the playoffs, and just needed a result to go their way against Leeds, which they led after 60 odd minutes for them to get into the playoffs, but it wasn't to be this time. Despite a basic start to the season with 2 wins again until the end of March, one of which being in the Challenge Cup, Castleford then went on a run in April, which saw them run up the table. 4 wins and 2 losses are not to be sniffed at, but the inconsistency of Castleford saw them stay middle of the road, to be fair, for most of the season. Castleford still ground out results along the way and find themselves at one point as high as 5th place, despite being without a regular halfback pairing throughout the entire season. Danny Richardson had 2 serious injuries to put paid to the majority of the season, one being in the game against Salford, the game that ended his season, and probably with it Castleford's chances of being a top 16 come playoffs. He also fractured his neck in a game earlier in the season, which also had him doubts of him returning, but he did, and dragged Castleford up the league. Richardson's return did coincide with the loss of another pivot, being Jake Truman, as he was lost to the season due to a knee injury also. He also announced at that time that he was off to Hull for 2023. And after a few minutes past the Jake Marmore try against Leeds in that ultimate final game of the season, Castleford still had a pulse in the Rugby League playoff race. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be. And now a rebuild is on, as Castleford announced a lot of releases, and no one named yet coming into the club. And that's it for another episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe and share this video worldwide, as well as clicking that notification bell for any updates on new videos that may be coming your way. Tell me what your thoughts are on the episode in the comment section below. It's open for business, so please be respectful and leave your comments on what your thoughts are. Do you agree with my assessment for the the bottom 6 teams? Do you think someone should be rated higher, or some teams should be rated lower? As I said, F is a lower. If you have a lower rating, please make it clear that it is within those parameters. But that's part 1 of my review for the year done. Part 2 will be coming tomorrow as we look at the top 6 teams as we get ready for the Super League playoffs. I know there's a playoff game in the morning, so I'll cover that as well. But in the meantime, please remember to share this video worldwide. I will now wish you all the best, so please stay safe, and I'll see you in the next episode.